Hey, welcome to the Rainmakers Power Hour. We wanted to extend our invitation to anyone that's out there on Twitter right now. We are live on Twitter and also YouTube live. Every week, we bring insightful discussion, expert strategies, and real world success stories with top entrepreneurs in business. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Migena to introduce our sponsor. And we're going to make this really quick because I want to hear everything about this special guest. Go ahead, McGinna.
Thank you, everybody. Tonight's episode is sponsored by William and Harry. Elevate your golf game with fantastic golf shoes. Back
Great,
to you guys.
great job. And thank you, McKenna, for standing in for Macy Nelson tonight. She is doing a charity event. But without further ado, let's get to our guest, Jim Sullivan, who, as he mentioned earlier, is on here twice. We were trying to get him to be a routine guest, and because he has all of the latest and greatest on finance. He has an MBA in finance from the University of San Francisco, owner of Sullivan Wood Capital Management out of DC. And tonight we're going to be talking about crypto and especially Bitcoin, gold, some AI and energy stocks. But first, Jim, give our audience that don't know you a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm honored to have a second shot, I guess, after the first time. It's great to be here. It really is. I've kind of interesting you bring up my background at a larger company that I'm going to work with recently reach out to me and say, give us a back. And when I graduated from business school in '94, the first 9 years I had 7 different jobs. And I worked on the buy side of the investment world. I worked on the sell side. I was a trader. I did a lot of different things and kind of moved around quite a bit. All of that kind of led to where I am today. And in 2003, 2004, I started Sullivan Wood Capital Management. And the whole focus was, and I really feel like this is kind of missing from the wealth management, investment management world, is just locating really good publicly traded companies that we can buy at a discount and own for 3 to 5 to 10 years. I say the same thing over and over and over again. And if you look back at my 5 and 10 year track record, every client of mine has made really good money during that time. So the thesis is really just to take the time to do the work to find a good company of multiple companies and buy them over the long term. As I said, I have an MBA in finance from University of San Francisco. I've lived in New York. I've lived in San Francisco. I've pretty much lived full time in Washington D.C. But the focus of the business is just simple, just like I said. It doesn't have to be a publicly traded stock. We have this whole new world of digital assets, and it's just we're fortunate to be alive in the time we are because of what's happening. It's a very opportunity to see a new asset class of digital assets, around us now that we can not only invest in but learn about. And we're in the first pitch of the very first inning of digital assets. So if it's, I know somebody brought up the concept of what's happening with gold. We're in this AI revolution. We're in this digital asset revolution. To me, this is where the internet has come together and convoluted to create this new technology that we're looking at in both AI and on digital assets. So again, going back, I'm looking for really great investment ideas long term that I can invest for my clients, and that's what I spend my entire day doing.
I love it. And obviously, Rhett and I are fans of yours. You have done very well for us. And so let's get into uh, crypto and Bitcoin. We hear a lot about cycles in digital assets. For people that don't know much about the cycles, can you tell us about those and where we are in the cycle now, in particular with Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. Before I do that, I just want to say two things. One, about Chatter itself. Again, I said this
Bitcoin.
is the second time I've been on. The first time it was quite glitchy and things didn't really go along.
Sure.
Now this has been
Before I
perfected. In my opinion, it's one of the best streaming sources out there right now. Today I was on a Twitter Spaces call, and I got dropped 4 times during the conversation. So this is credit to the guys who and the folks behind Chatter, the tech team that they've created a really great product, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And Nelson, you too. I know you're on the call. Fantastic work that you're doing. We'll just look forward to seeing this grow. Secondly, to Wendy, credit to all you guys. The level of guests you guys have on this, you can't turn off the show. Last week's was incredible, and I don't even know how I follow up with that, but it was really great. So my hat's off to you guys. I'm putting it on, but I'm taking it off. I'm telling you guys what a great job. Yeah. So the last time I was on, we talked a lot about the new administration coming in and taking a real 180 toward digital assets. And that's exactly what's happened, right? We've seen a new SEC chief come in, Paul Atkins. He's been very pro digital assets. Matter of fact, he went back at the last administration and he removed a lot of the legislative issues, some of the legal issues against what's happening in the space. And what you've actually seen now are a lot of developers come back to the United States, and the United States becoming a real digital asset hub for what's happening in the space. And you're starting to see real, products being built on level ones like Ethereum and Solana and so forth. So you're starting to see a real growth. I feel we're kind of at the very beginning of what's going to be a growth in digital assets. To go back to your question about there is a very it's a very Bitcoin itself is a very volatile asset. It's a 40 vol asset, which means it moves 40 times the market, and it goes through significant waves. It goes through significant moves, and you've seen it go up 250% and down 70%, and usually every 3 to 4 years you see a big upward move or downward move. We've clearly had a pretty large upward move. In the Bitcoin itself is a very volatile asset. Most people say by the end of 2025 and 2 or 3 months to the middle of 2026, and it goes through significant waves. In Bitcoin, again, it's really hard. And you've seen it go up 250% and down 70%, and possibly usually every 3 to 4 years you see a big upward move or downward move. I'm in the camp that we've clearly had there is pretty large a very in the Bitcoin itself is a very volatile. An early stage asset similar to gold in the 1930s to the middle of 2026, and it goes through significant waves. In Bitcoin, again, it's really hard. You've seen it go up 250% and down 70%, and possibly usually every 3 to 4 years you see a big upward move or downward. I'm in the camp that we clearly have a very it's behind per Bitcoin. And now one of the things you've seen recently that really kind of makes me feel good about that is the amount of liquidity in the world markets. The level of M2 global money is really exploded. And recently you've seen gold move 80 to 90% in a 6 month period. And matter of fact, if this call was yesterday, I would have spot on, because I've been saying that you're going to see a move from gold dropping into Bitcoin, and today that happened. You saw a significant downward move in gold, and that proceeds went into Bitcoin. And I think you're going to start to see more and more of that as Bitcoin becomes what it really is, and that's a true store of value, which is what gold has been. So you're going to have two specific store of values. One is gold that you've seen a really big move in, and now I think you're going to start to see money moving back into Bitcoin. Again, part of my job is not to tell you like where we are today. Let's talk about where we want to be in 3, 5, and 10 years, right? And that's what a really good investor can do is like, where's the puck going, not where it's coming from. And the puck is headed north and on Bitcoin. So my opinion of the cycle is I think we've seen the cycles in the past 18 years that Bitcoin's been an asset, and it's going to be much less volatile. You're going to see slower climb upward, but it's going to be, and you're going to hear more of this from sovereign nations that want to buy it as a reserve asset. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see it happen in the United States as well. I mean, I think right now they're the fourth largest holder of Bitcoin, and most of that is to Bitcoin they have confiscated through some bad actors. So that sits on their balance sheet, and with this administration, they're not going to move it. So my answer to your question is I think we've seen the volatility. You've already seen the volatility come down. So I think the cycle will be longer, if not forgotten, as we start to move into a long-term asset that's going to consistently move higher. One last thing about Bitcoin. It's a proof of work asset, and I can get into that in a second, meaning eh, there's less and less Bitcoin available every time it gets mined or every time it gets bought and put away. With a declining a share count, or you want to call it, or coin count, you're going to see demand, and that's just supply and demand pushing the price higher. So I'm pretty confident over the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see Bitcoin significantly higher and a significantly less volatile asset.
Let me jump in there for a minute,
Sure.
Jim, so you can take a sip of your water. And I want to remind everyone in the audience that this is not financial advice because I'm licensed and bonded, and I don't know to what level that James is right now because he has his own firm. But this is all a discussion of what all the assets that are available right now, what's trading, what are the risk factors, and so forth. So I just want to do that reminder because I am licensed, so I can't, say certain things. However, we are understanding the volatility. And when volatility markets happen, that's an opportunity for you to make money. If it's just stagnant, right, Jim? There's no way for you to make money. So you have to be able to be prepared. And if you are on the
100%.
sideline, if you are on the sidelines, make sure that you have money so that you can pull the trigger. A lot of people, they're like, "Well, I missed that." Well, you didn't even have money on the sideline. So my question to you is, gold is going up. Everybody's running out to buy gold, whether it's going to Costco and buying it like 6, 7 months ago at 2,700. Now it's at 4,000. Okay, you missed the boat. Now, can you, if you still want to get into gold, I know there's ETFs out there. There are, you can do futures. What are some of the options that people have that they can still get in the game instead of lugging around gold bars, which is kind of dangerous because I don't really want to get hit with the whole gold bar or going through TSA and people taking my gold bars. So what are their options for the gold side?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're heavy to carry around, so I'm sure you don't want to carry
And they're
gold
a
bars
cold
around.
weapon too. So
Exactly. Yeah, and just as far as this not being financial advice, I am also licensed as an RIA, so I probably should have and been a bit compliant and said that this is not financial advice. But one thing I want to say about that is, I mean, clearly it is, right? I mean, I'm telling you that I think that Bitcoin significantly can go significantly higher. You need to have the assets behind that to understand it in a 3 to 5 year time frame. And if you do have that, then on your own you can take the information that you're hearing here and you can put that to work. But you're putting that to work with your own understanding of what you're doing. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you feel free to call me. I mean, this is what I do for a living. I work with Wendy and Rhett. I mean, this is part of my business. I mean, it's trying to find good ideas that over the long term make people money. There's a lot of ways to play gold. There are obviously a lot of ETFs out there that you can buy. Pretty much every large financial firm has an ETF. You can play the gold miners right now. I mean, with the
Can
price
you
of gold and
explain
where it
what
is.
an ETF? I want to. What is an ETF? I don't want to assume
Yeah.
everyone
So
understands. Go ahead.
yeah, an ETF is an exchange traded fund that tracks any type of asset. It can track gold, it can track the dollar, it can track the S&P 500. Matter of fact, one of the largest ETFs in the world is SPY, which tracks the S&P 500, which is the five largest companies in the United States, all held in one basket. So you have a nice diversified basket of stocks to own the SPY. In fact, a lot of you have 401ks. I recommend to most of my clients just to buy the SPY as an investment.
Yes, for that. Can you expand on that? How people can participate? Because I know there's Bitcoin Fund. I mean, you can Google it. You can chat GPT and ask, which types of ETFs that I can get involved in that I don't actually have to outlay a lot because it's all leverage. Can you give us a few examples?
Yeah, I mean, so again, similar to gold, all the largest investment firms out there, BlackRock has the largest ETF right now that tracks Bitcoin. I think it's BITF, that might be Bitfarms. There are specific companies that only follow the digital asset space. Galaxy Digital has one with Invesco that they have an ETF. So the best way to really do it is, if you don't have a financial advisor that you can talk to, one, reach out to them, or two, you can Google, Bitcoin ETF. And what you really want to see is there's so much competition that the fees have dropped down to like very, very low. They're like 10 basis points, 0.1%. So they're significantly low, but they've had massive amount of inflows. The largest amount of inflows ever into an ETF over the past 2 years have gone into Bitcoin ETFs. It's been just extraordinarily to see what's happened in that space. So again, like, if you can kind of get an inkling of what I was saying, what I think is going to happen, an ETF, a Bitcoin ETF, is a great way to do it. And the Galaxy Invesco has one that's a really great ETF to own.
Thank you. McKenna, go ahead. I know you have
Thank.
crazy questions to ask.
Oh no, and they're not crazy at all. It's just fascinating that only a few years ago we didn't even know how to pronounce Bitcoin or ETF or all of the above, and here we are. Hot topics: Bitcoin, gold, which we know a lot longer, but then AI, right? We've
Yeah.
seen in the AI space a lot of AI publicly traded companies as well as private companies. Their stock is moving tremendously. Do you foresee an AI bubble?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I put a note out yesterday, and I was kind of speaking about. I was actually used the note that came from Goldman Sachs analyst talking about the AI bubble. So the quick answer to your question is no, not right now. And the only reason I say that is I don't think the valuations of the largest, the Mag Seven, to include companies like Palantir, the real AI leaders, are not that expensive. They're not trading at multiple values anywhere similar to what happened in 2000. The other thing that's unique is they are funding the AI revolution by investing in electricity, investing in GPUs. This is why Nvidia has done extraordinarily well, and they're investing using their own profits. These are extraordinarily profitable companies. Amazon, Meta, Google, they really are using their internal profits. So back in the day in 2000, the big tech bubble, most of that was fueled by debt. Now, there are some private companies that are raising debt to try to build out electrical systems to power these GPU systems. So that's something you have to keep an eye on, and yes, prices of a lot of those assets have gone up. So we're at an elevated level, and I wrote that in the note yesterday. But I don't think we're at like a really ridiculous level that's gonna turn into a bubble. One thing about a bubble, right? Right? The concept is very sensationalist, meaning it's a great story on CNBC. It's a great story on Fox, News, to talk about we're in a bubble. There's a guy on CNBC who just wrote a book called 1929. He's kind of comparing what's happening today to what happened in 1929, and that was the year before the Great Depression. Boy, he's going to sell a lot of books, right? It's a really, really interesting story. I'm not quite sure he's right, but that's part of what I'm saying. It's a good talking point, and it gets in people's heads. And back to you, Credit, talking about gold. I mean, if you think we're headed toward a AI bubble where you're going to see 50, 70% drop in the markets, you want to move your money to gold, because that gold is a safe asset. So that's one of the reasons why you've seen a real significant move in gold over the past 6 to 9 months, as there's a lot of people that want to put their money into a safe asset. Not to mention you've seen weakness in the dollar. The debasement in the dollar has driven that money into gold. But to answer your question, I don't think we're there yet, right? I mean, I think we're more 1996, and you're looking at what's happening in the AI space as one of the greatest revolutions the internet's ever done. It really is. It's the combination of digital assets changing the financial world, and it really will. It will change the trade fi world, and we can get into that as well. And AI, that's going to change the way we manufacture and we move and we do things. We are again living in a time that's pretty unique, and all of that started from the internet back in the early 90s to what it is today, being able to allow these technologies to be as efficient as they are. And you look at the major companies behind it, they have extraordinary amounts of cash flow. So to answer your question, I think we're still really we're third inning probably in what's happening in the AI as far as the prices of investments. There's a lot of opportunity here. We're really early in what AI is going to do to us as as a society, as an economy. It's pretty spectacular, and it's also a little scary at the same time to think about what's going to happen out there, because it's going to displace jobs, create new jobs. And I have two kids in college who are going to be coming out looking for work, and it's getting more difficult every year because of these types of technologies. But we've always, as a nation, shifted to finding a more better opportunity for work, and there'll be opportunity out there within the AI space. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but it's kind of where I see things going.
Yes, I mean, for sure. We it comes to mind some other guests that we've had on, in particular Nidhi Akhtar,
Yeah.
who talks about quantum computing with you know, picking stocks at the speed of thought, or trading
Yeah.
stocks at the speed of thought. What do you think about that? What do you think about these quantum, bot trading and all of the things that are happening with that?
I mean, it's already happening, right? I mean, you'll see markets make big moves on a day-to-day basis based on algorithms. When they break through a certain level, an algorithm will kick in, and you'll see a significant amount of buying. 25% of the stock market's owned by 10 companies right now, which is a little bit scary to think about that amount of concentration in one area. Yet these are the 10 most profitable companies in the world, right? So those companies can be easily manipulated by their stock. By the way, I'm sorry, can be manipulated by algorithms. And then with the quantum computing and with even more powerful computing sources, you're going to see more and more of that. Um, for me, I try to look through the forest and find the trees, because within that forest, there's a lot of great ideas. And regardless of how volatile the market might be based on algorithmic movements or quantum computing, you're going to find great companies. And by the way, some of them are in that space. They're in the quantum computing, they're in the AI space. I mean, we've had a lot of success with Palantir, one of the greatest software AI companies to come out in the last 20 years. The stock has been a really good, investment for us. We got into it very early. Very, really unique CEO, Alex Karp, who says AI is changing the world. And he has, in my opinion, one of the first software to really get into industry and change it with AI. It's really unique what he's doing. So back to the trading aspect, yeah, there's going to be a lot of algorithmic trading, quantum computing, but it's not. I don't think it's ever going to change the mindset, the brain set of finding good companies and making a good investment for the long term. So hopefully, my job is not going to be taken away from me by quantum computing, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in, Jim. At what point would a person be confident enough to trade their own account versus having someone like you to trade the account for them? Because I trade my own accounts, but I've had a lot of experience. So at what point would they hand it off and say, you know what? I'm screwing up all different ways. Whatever I pick is going to go to crap,
Why don't you
whatever.
do your own
Yeah.
heart? Why don't you do your own heart surgery too?
Cindy.
Good point,
I'm
Cindy
just
Stumpo.
saying, I'm just saying, I hand my money over to my professionals. I don't claim to know it all, right? So I'm just saying, let me know when you can do your own heart surgery, fill your own tooth when you go to the dentist.
Good point, Cindy
That's my.
Stumpo.
No, so that's a really really good question, credit, and I love the heart surgery analogy, right? I mean, that's absolutely spot on. Again, I've been in this business for 30 years, and I mentioned that my first 9 years I had 7 different jobs. And I look back at it as pretty unique. I was doing a lot of different things. One of them was trading, right? And I just never was able to make money trading. In my perspective, I know you had the Nigerian brothers on, and they have an options trading business, and they have a trading business. I have a very different perspective of how I go about doing my business. And I feel like it's sort of settled on me over the years that the real way to make money in this business, and I know it's boring, is to find a real great company like we did with Palantir, $12, $15, recognize what they're doing. Stanley Druckenmiller says it best, right? Find a good idea, put it in a basket, and watch that basket really closely, right? And that's what I feel like I've had the most success. And I found over the long term, credit, that I had better returns than trying to trade the account. So nothing wrong with trading. People do it and have great success with it. I feel like you end up with a lot of tax liability at some point. But over the long period of time, I found and again, having done this as long as I have, if you feel like you're not beating the market over with a really consistent long period of time, then you need to hire somebody to do it for you. Let me also say this: you don't want to hire a bad heart surgeon either, right? Or bring on a bad doctor. So if you're going to hire somebody who's going to underperform for you over time, reconsider what you're doing because you can do that yourself. I mean, I say this over and over: is if somebody wants to manage their own money on their own, trade their own account, I'll give you ideas. I mean, I really don't mind one bit. Over time, I find out most of those folks would rather focus on their business and let me do what I do, and then they have success. I had a call with a new client today who basically just said, "I don't want to look at this anymore. I just want you to do it." I think that answers your question, credit. But going back to the listener who mentioned the heart surgeon, make sure you talk to a number of different investment managers
That would be
and who
Cindy,
focus on
Jim.
investing. Um, yes, thanks, Sydney.
Indeed, yeah.
So
Okay.
but that I think that should answer the question. I mean, I try. My firm specifically is an investment firm. I really don't do a lot of like wealth planning and insurance and a lot of other things. I leave that to the other experts. It's just flat out trying to find a great idea that over 3, 5, and 10 years we can do well. So, again, if you want to trade your own account, good luck. I think it's hard to really be successful and beat the market. Some people do, but not many do. So
Yeah, I
I'm sure
guess
you do, credit. I know we've talked about it.
I know I live on the edge because I do live in Vegas. Every day's a gamble. Not sure if I'm going to be here, but um, Jim, another question is: I've dealt with a lot of brokers. I dealt with a lot of investment bankers and advisors, and this is back about 7 or 8 years when crypto started creeping up and people are starting to trade it. A lot of investment bankers cannot talk about crypto. I know my Raymond James guy that's so conservative. He can't even be around it. They're so compliant. At what point do you start going, okay, how did you transition over? When did you make that decision? 'Cause it is a big step. And also someone like a Grant Cardone, when we started talking about crypto and Bitcoin, he was so dead against it. Now he's done a 360. So can you explain what that transition looked like for someone to accept it and actually embrace it?
I mean, that's a great question, and I have a number of really good analogies. First, for myself, I mentioned that I came from the investment world, like I was on a buy side and a sell side in trading. So I never worked for a large wealth management firm like Schwab or Merrill Lynch. So I've never been, what's the word I'm trying to use? Like, kept in a corner where I couldn't do certain things. My asset class was anything I wanted to invest in, right? And I've always wanted to be that way. And matter of fact, I used to be at a different broker dealer that one time wanted to like limit my ability to do certain things, and I moved someplace that gave me more autonomy. So that's just for me. You're absolutely right. Matter of fact, you're seeing Morgan Stanley just came out and recommended a 2% allocation to Bitcoin, and to Bitcoin only. Let me say they haven't talked about Ethereum, and this is the first time Morgan Stanley has opened the door. I'm starting to work with a woman who just moved from Merrill Lynch. She's on her own, and went over and spoke to them a good hour and a half about Bitcoin because now on her own she has the ability to recommend an asset allocation to her clients. So you're seeing more and more and more of the ability for the large, they call them wirehouses, the Merrill Lynch's, the Schwab's, the TD Ameritrades, to allow you to buy the ETFs. Not many of them. Fidelity is really the only one that I know of that actually allow you to buy physical Bitcoin, and they'll custody it through their own custodial services, or they'll use Galaxy or somebody like BitGo. But Fidelity's was very early into understanding what's happening in Bitcoin. And going back to your Grant Cardone situation, I don't know if you guys remember Jamie Dimon at J.P. Morgan called it pet rocks not more than 5 or 6 years ago. Today, they have one of the largest crypto trading desks in the country. So you don't always want to, do what they say, do what they're doing, right? And they clearly were building a crypto trading desk while he was calling it Pet Rocks. Now, he did come back later and say, "Hey, you're on your own to make a decision if you want to buy Bitcoin. Don't listen to me. I don't really believe in it, but if you do, all the best to you." But you've started to see these major banks start allowing more and more of their clients, or more importantly, their advisors, recommend an asset allocation to Bitcoin. And one more thing, I found this kind of interesting. In the conversation I had with the woman who moved her business from Merrill Lynch, one of her analysts asked me, what asset allocation would you recommend to our clients for Bitcoin? And I said to her, well, you tell me what asset has had a 33% growth, CAGR, or capital asset growth rate for the last 15 years. And the answer is none. So I said you would probably want to put 100% of your clients' money into Bitcoin because it will outperform any asset class in the next 5 or 10 years. All right. Now that's crazy. They're not going to put 100% of their assets in, but you've seen more and more firms go to 5 or 10%. And I'm trying to think. I think BlackRock went to like 15% allocation. So you're, to answer your original question, we're seeing more and more of the large banks allow their advisors to talk about an allocation to Bitcoin. And more people, I mean, look, let me just kind of get a little bit off path and talk about something unique that's also happened in with Bitcoin and digital assets. There's something called a digital asset treasury company, or a DAT, a DAT. Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy started the first one, and everybody thought he was crazy. I mean, similar to what Grant Cardone probably was thinking, and Jamie Dimon. But he used about $1 billion of the treasury assets that was in dollars at the time for MicroStrategy to buy Bitcoin about 5 years ago. He was a $30 billion company, and today it's a $350 billion company, and he's one of the largest holders of Bitcoin in the world. And people started recognizing, hey, this guy's on to something. So if you're Apple Computer, if you're Meta, you're Amazon, and you're sitting on billions in dollars in your treasury, at some point, you might start thinking of putting that into an appreciating asset, not into a depreciating asset like the dollar. That money sitting on your balance sheet is just losing value. So what these digital asset treasury companies have done is said, okay, we get it. All right. They've gone and they've acquired companies whose management teams decided to drop what they were doing and just start acquiring Bitcoin. They've done it with Ethereum, and they're called digital asset treasury companies. The point being that over time, and I think this will happen, you're going to see Microsoft eventually say, "We get it." Right? We're sitting on $100 billion in assets and cash, sorry, in US dollars. This is the worst year the US dollar's had in its history, down 10%. That's why gold is jumping and Bitcoin's jumping. You're going to have to put that money to work. And your shareholders are going to start asking questions of why you're not doing it. Right? And this is Amazon, this is Meta, this is every one of the large companies out there. And you've started to slowly see companies start to shift to putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And you're going to see it more from sovereign nations as well pretty soon. Yeah, so there's a lot of that happening. And the last point I'll bring up, these digital asset treasury companies. I'm good friends with Michael Novogratz from Galaxy Digital, and he was on the call today, the earnings call today, which, by the way, they had a phenomenal earnings call. And he said, I didn't believe in the treasury companies when it first started, but then it finally clicked. Like, and then I realized, wow, like these guys are sitting on a depreciating asset. And what they have to do is start thinking, putting that money to work for their shareholders. Right. So he has his own digital asset treasury company now called Ford, that they started buying, in this case, Solana, to put on that balance sheet because it's been an appreciating asset. So I don't know if that answers your question, Credit, but we're seeing these changes come at us all over the place, and that's one of the reasons why I happen to be so bullish on Bitcoin and digital assets. Bitcoin specifically as a reserve asset, you're going to see it everywhere soon. I mean, it's already happening, and it's happening faster than you can imagine. And just the fact that Grant Cardone changed his mind, he's a sharp guy, and when he recognized this opportunity, he was willing to change his mind and come out with a positive opinion on it.
I do
Well,
want
you
to
know, we want to
I
we
want to
want to
jump in
open
real
the.
quick, Credit,
Go ahead.
because I
Okay.
I have got
No,
to
go ahead.
ask you this quick question, Jim, because I know you're on a tight time frame here. But one of the companies that you talk about a lot, Galaxy Digital. We have to talk about that tonight before you go. You were with Novogratz, ringing the bell this year. There's your hat.
Go.
Tell us about the experience. Why do you like this company? Where is this company going? Let's hear about it.
Yeah. Again, when I talk specifically about one company, as Credit mentioned, this is not financial advice. Do your own homework. If you really want to learn more about it, obviously it's something I've have a passion for. I really think that Galaxy is the first mover into digital asset space. I jokingly say their motto should be "Galaxy is everywhere" because they literally are. They're involved in asset management. They just announced today they have 13 billion in assets under management across the entire spectrum: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and through digital asset treasury companies. They have a trading unit where if you want to sell a trading desk, sorry, if you want to sell a digital asset, they sold 80,000 Bitcoin this year for one person. That was like I don't even know the size, like an $8 billion, $80 billion sale. They're designed to take what digital assets are going to do and take it to the traditional finance world, right? In today's call, there was a lot of talk about something called tokenization. And this is something that's happening really quickly. Galaxy stock is now tokenized. Larry Fink, who's the chairman of BlackRock, said every real world asset, to include real estate, will be tokenized in the next 10 years, probably 5 years. Um, Galaxy's company is there to help you take and tokenize your business. They also have a venture capital portfolio where they're investing probably 250 different companies where they put $5 to $10 million a pop into small companies that are digital asset related, AI related, blockchain technologies, payment processors. They literally have their fingers in everything. They honestly have become the Goldman Sachs of the space. And because they're a first mover and they've been in this space for about 8 years now, they really have become the place you want to go if you want to learn about what's happening in the space. If you're an institution, somebody with a significantly large amount of money and you want to into the space. And it was fascinating on the call today that Mike said, and his head of asset management said that they've never been more busy than they have this past 3 months and into this month. Just people wanting to learn more about what's happening in the space, where they can be invested. And not just in Bitcoin, but in a lot of the other tokens that are out there, especially Ethereum and Solana. So again, I look at it as a way to be invested in all aspects of what's happening in the digital asset space, from blockchain technologies to tokenization. I'm going to give you a really unique situation that they did maybe 6 months ago. There's a very famous Stradivarius violin that was owned by a Russian family, royal family, and the owner was a Japanese fellow who it's about a $30 million violin, and he wanted to sell it, but instead of selling it, he had it tokenized at Galaxy, and then he borrowed against that. So the tokenized asset became an NFT, right? That Galaxy owns, and Galaxy holds it as collateral, and they lent it out. They lent him money. We don't know how much he borrowed against it, but instead of actually having to sell that asset, he was able to borrow against it and use it as collateral. And just about 2 weeks ago in Tokyo, a very famous violinist played it for a crowd. There was a number of Galaxy people there. There was a number of, obviously wealthy people interested in the music industry. But that's fascinating, in that what they have done. So back to your original question, yeah, I just find these guys being the best way to learn about everything happening in the digital asset space and a way to be invested in it as well. And I'll say one other thing about Galaxy. You've had on a number of really great entrepreneurs who've had a lot of success, and they're really fun to listen to and really incredible stories. But the opportunity to invest alongside some of these guys, like we've done with Michael Novogratz at Galaxy, is what I'm all about, right? Is finding that next great entrepreneur who's building a business and building it in a unique space. I mean, Bezos has done it. All these guys, you have the opportunity at an early stage, and I think we are to be invested right alongside somebody like Michael Novogratz. He owns 55% of the company, so he's extremely invested in what he's doing. And the guys that work for him are the best of the best. So I'm happy to talk about that more offline if anybody has interest. But it's really a fascinating company that they've built, and today was the best quarter they've ever had, and it's really, I think, pushed them to a level where they're the best in the industry.
For sure. I guess it hit about 45 today, didn't it? It was it 45?
Somewhere
No.
around there,
It's
yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah. Nobody's looking every
that's
day,
what she
right?
She's
There
got
you
it.
go.
40.
Nobody's looking every day
Yeah.
except us. Yeah,
You know,
and to her
the
point,
next thing I'll say, Wendy, is that
yeah.
what's interesting about Galaxy is it's almost like every month or so they come up with a new product that they launched into the space to help individual investors or even institutional investors learn more about it. A couple weeks ago, they launched Galaxy One, which is their retail business. You can load it on your phone. You can put it on your desktop. You can buy, like 10 different digital assets, thousands of stocks. You can buy ETFs, gold ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, and it's an exchange that's going to compete with Robinhood and going to compete with Coinbase. And again, I feel like they're just consistently getting themselves out there in and promoting what's going on. And you can own part of that business by owning shares in the company.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Can
Yeah.
I ask a
Okay.
quick question? I
Yes,
know
go
we're
ahead, McKenna. Yes.
crunch here, but wow, this is so educational. And Jim, what have you noticed within the family offices space? How are they balancing allocations between Bitcoin, gold, and other investments, given that it's legacy, it's a different way of investing, and I'm a lot in that space and curious to know your thoughts and experience.
Yeah, I mean, they've been slower to adopt Bitcoin as part of the or in digital assets as part of their investment strategy. You know, most family offices work with very wealthy families, right? So they're not really worried about growing their wealth or like, turning 50 million into 100 million. They're really about preserving that wealth and really trying to make sure that, that something doesn't really go wrong with that. So they have a very small part of their investment portfolio into risk assets. And there's no question right now Bitcoin and digital assets are risk assets. Right? I think over time, as I mentioned, the volatility will probably decrease, and it'll be more like gold and less of a risk asset. Ac- risk asset. Excuse me. But right now, it's definitely considered that way. So to answer your question, I think they're a little slow to move on it. In fact, I'm talking to a number of family offices right now to try to work with them in getting them interested in what is happening in the space. Um, yeah, and so that's what I've noticed so far.
Thank you. No, I love it.
No,
I
thanks.
you
Yeah,
confirming my observations because they're not there yet. And I love that you said that it's more
no,
about preservation than it is about increasing. It's about playing it safe. There definitely are the conservative side of investors out there. But thanks, appreciate it.
So let's open it. I know you've got to go, Jim, but we did want to see if there was anybody in the audience that wanted to ask a question. I, I see
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate it. I appreciate the education on where the industry is at. I think the key you just talked about is that DAT code. Well, I think you called it a DAT. Um, like and Wendy just all literally mentioned family offices. So knowing that corporations aren't fully cryptized, I'm gonna call it cryptized. I made that up. In
mhm,
a sense of the DATCO literally is a decentralized financing strategy. So that's literally the whole concept of all cryptocurrency, in general. My question
yeah.
though is, since you trade for other people, my question was literally like 30 minutes ago, but I think I almost forgot it. Do you guys utilize EAs in in trading?
I'm sure EA is an acronym for
Expert
I'm
advisor.
missing something. No, I mean, I don't personally for my clients. I don't use ETFs. I don't use an EA like that. I mean, I have a team of guys, a crew that we analyze investments. We're looking at 20 or 30 companies all the time. Um, we have a value perspective, so something has to really get beaten down before I'm going to jump in and try to be an investor. So it just takes time to find something in that space. But no, I don't use any outside advice or I do have some research
No, no,
analysts that I
no.
really love that I
No, I
talk to.
think I think I guess terminology would be called a trading bot. But I was using the
No,
formal EA as an expert advisor, as in a because a lot of times you guys have a strategy, so sometimes it's creating an automation based on the strategy Yeah.
No, I'm an old guy, so I kind of have old school perspective. So I still believe in I don't have a trading bot or anything of that sorts. Yeah, I stay more toward and I don't even trade that much to be honest with you. And you get in and sit
Seems
on
like
something for years and a little bit later. But
seems like you're
Okay.
oh, that
more.
answered your question.
Long term. That sounds like a long term, definitely. Because what I'm talking
Yeah,
about, maybe more of a day
I mean
trader. And
I
yeah.
am literally I can just say that yeah. Yeah, you don't want to reach out to me unless you have at least a 3 to 5 year window. Beyond that, oops.
Got it. Hey, I did want to let Nelson had a question for you.
Oh,
Go ahead,
absolutely.
Nelson.
Thank you so much, Wendy. But Jim, oh my God, man. From tokenization to just a lot of information. And I really want to thank you for just, sharing your time and wisdom with us here tonight. But on the topic of ETFs, right? So I would assume that these are much safer routes when it comes to investing in these asset classes, specifically Bitcoin, considering the financial institutions that have those ETFs. That being said, why is it that certain Bitcoin maxis opt for buying actual Bitcoin, storing them on hard wallets, and risk the possibility of those wallets getting stolen or losing their actual passcodes when it comes to accessing those wallets, out of curiosity?
Yeah, so you're hitting on a totally unique part of the digital asset space. Bitcoin maxis are people who believe only in Bitcoin, right? They believe Bitcoin was designed as a reserve asset for the world, similar to gold, and that because it has a limited supply, that's the only asset that really exists. And what part of what they also believe, and I believe in this as well, there's 10,000 digital assets out there. 99,000 of them are going to die, right? Or you've already seen 10,000 of them die in the past 5 or 6 years. So similar to what happened in the early stages of the internet bust and boom, we saw a lot of I love using the pets.com story, the guy with the sock on his hand. They raised 1.5 billion and they lost it all in like a year. So that's happened already in the space, and we're going to see a lot of the digital assets go away. Um, Back to your question, the Bitcoin maxis believe in decentralization. 100%. They believe that you buy that asset and you keep it separate from any financial institution. If they had their way, there wouldn't be Bitcoin ETFs. The only way you would buy Bitcoin is you buy it, you put it on a digital wallet, and you'd hold it in a digital wallet, and that's the way they look at it. So that's just the belief of the Bitcoin maxis. Be honest with you, uh, Michael Saylor is a Bitcoin maxi. Okay, he only believes in Bitcoin. It's the only thing he's putting on his balance sheet. He has reasons why. By the way, I know it's on his balance sheet, but he has those Bitcoin held in custody in a very secure digital wallet, most likely with a company called BitGo. So he's a perfect example of somebody who's a Bitcoin maxi. He's not going to buy Ethereum. Matter of fact, he even gets out there trashes Ethereum and Solana and some of the others frequently. But hats off to him. He's been very successful in what he's done with Bitcoin. So it's um it's interesting. The concept of decentralization is what Bitcoin and digital assets are all about. And it's part of the concept that got Michael Novogratz into it very early. Was he saw a change to the traditional financial services industry. If you talk to him about decentralization or tokenization. They just launched Galaxy One, and that's a TradeFi system, meaning it's not decentralized, it's not a tokenized asset, it's not a tokenized wallet. Down the road, and he's talked about this, you're going to have a digital wallet that you're going to hold digital assets, checking, banking, savings, stocks. All those stocks will be tokenized, and you'll be able to take your Amazon stock and swap it through digital wallets for Bitcoin, and this is all going to happen. If it's 5 or 10 years, it's going to happen soon. And that middleman, that broker that makes that transaction, is going to be gone, right? And they're going to be eliminated. The concept of banks are really afraid of. They're really concerned about the idea that you could have an online bank and not really have to use a brick and mortar bank any longer. And you're even seeing some of those banks start to create digital wallets. We're just not there yet. I mean, Novogratz was talking about that today on the call. We're really close to a massive amount of tokenization. And they talked a lot about, I know there's some realtors on here as well. They talked about, the settlement process of a real estate transaction being done on the blockchain. Instead of settling in 2 or 3 days or 2 days, it's going to settle in a matter of minutes, right? And it's more secure, it's safer, and you can move larger amounts of money in shorter amounts of time. So I'm getting a little bit off base there, Nelson, but back to your original question about Bitcoin maxis, they just believe in Bitcoin, and they believe in holding it in a decentralized wallet. Which, by the way, I think that's where we're going to go in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's very interesting indeed. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I keep going with
one
questions,
more thing.
ladies, if you let me.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna throw it back to you, because one thing I know that we're working on is obviously raising some money for Chatter,
Of
right?
course.
And we've had some success as we moved along here, and you're in your A round of trying to grow your business. Part of what I'm doing is looking for good investment ideas for my clients. So we're doing this for Chatter, and I brought up the idea of tokenizing Chatter as an investment option, right? Back in 2021, there were a lot of ICOs, initial coin offerings. Many of them were just pump and dumps and didn't really work. This same thing happened in 1999 and 2000, the internet boom. There were a lot of really bad companies with no fundamentals going public. You're going to start to see more companies using the tokenization route to tokenize their equity, if you want to call it that, and sell it as a way to raise money. And then that equity will be held in a digital wallet, or in some sort of digital format, and that's going to happen. And Nelson, you and I talked about this today. We're a little early, maybe. It's hard to be the first mover, but whoever is that first mover who captures that first really successful tokenization of their companies, they're going to raise a lot of money. And if that is like your company is doing, Chatter is extraordinarily successful, that's going to change the dynamic of how companies raise money. And you're not going to have to pay an investment banker tens of millions of dollars to raise money. You're going to do it right over a decentralized, platform, where you're able to just, the success of your business just shows itself, and you're able to sell that token right to individual investors.
James, and I'm glad you brought that up with tokenization, because that leads me into my next question. How do you see that play? So I try to play it out in my head, you know, and don't you see the SEC and Wall Street getting? It sounds a little,
Yeah.
it sounds fantastic, but at the same time, don't you see, you know, the SEC getting in the way of something like that? Because again, I mean, tokenizing a startup, a private company, I
Yeah,
mean, it's
you
essentially
cut
like
out a
opening
second, but
up.
I think I can look. This is what's happened in the past, year. You had an SEC in the last administration that was very negative, this whole industry, and if you a lot, and rightfully so in some ways. Like these ICOs I mentioned, a lot of people made money, a lot of people lost money. They were pretty much a disaster, right? Um, and they just they were scorned on because of what happened. The new administrations come in and said, all right, we see the mistakes that were made in the space. We recognize that there were some problems, but we need to create new regulations around this, because we know where this is going, right? This is going to happen, and you can't stop it. So let's start talking about what we can do to regulate, manage, organize, control, right? And make this concept of tokenization work. You can't use the 1930s Securities Act for a 2025 digital asset. It just doesn't work. So you're already have seen, stable coins that are being issued, and you have the Genius Act that came out that talks about what coins can and can't do. Now you have the Clarity Act going through Congress, most likely going to pass, most bipartisan, with starting to generate regulations around exactly what you just brought up. So you don't have fraud built into the system. So you have a company like Chatter that's willing to go out there and be a first mover and tokenize their assets. And it's successful. You want the SEC behind you, backing you, supporting you, not having to look over your shoulder thinking they're gonna sue you because you didn't cross one T and dot the right I. I think you're seeing a real change. So again, I'm going to quote Novogratz today, but he says it's coming. It's it, it. We wish it happened earlier. It's 3, 5, and 10 years from now, but it's coming, and it's going to be. Somebody's going to step out there. Maybe it's you, Nelson. Maybe it happens where you step out there and be one of the first companies to tokenize their asset and raise money, and then all of a sudden, a social media company to me is the perfect spot, because you could sell that Chatter token as part of your rockets as a payment processor that can convert it to a stable coin. And you see where I'm going with that, right?
No,
There aren't
totally.
enough digital wallets out there being held by people for it to happen, but we're getting there. And I don't know if that answered your question, but and that's a very complicated answer on a very complicated um, process. We don't know how it's going to be built out. We don't know what the regulations are going to look like. We haven't been there yet, but it's
100%.
coming.
100%. 100%. And if that future
I
does
can't hear you, Nelson.
come,
Sorry.
you guys can't hear me right now?
Yeah, I can
Sorry,
hear you.
guys. I can't hear him.
You can't hear me? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear all y'all.
You can? I'm good?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, if that future does come, right?
Yeah.
You have a
I'm
first
back.
mover, it becomes the norm. It's like, what then is the point for a company to go public, right? Because it's like you tokenize your assets. It's supply and demand ultimately, but people can move that asset just like a public stock, right? So like, don't you see those two worlds conflating with each other?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think we, we don't know the answer to how this will work. ICOs were launched by like 3 cents, 3 cents a token, and then the thing kind of took off. And if it worked, and they did a secondary round, but most of this will be done via algorithm online. Via algorithm through digital wallets. And again, I'm certainly not an expert in this. I mean, you could sit in the Galaxy offices and there are guys that talk about this all day long, trying to figure out where this is going to go. Their business is built around making this happen. If this is successful, this company will be a major company in the digital asset space. They already are, but they'll even be bigger than that because they're the guys who are building out this system. And like you just said, why would you go public, or why would you pay Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, tens of millions of dollars to take your company public when you could do it through an algorithm online and save yourself a tremendous amount of money? I mean, honestly, when they do these IPOs, they price it at 30, the stock opens at $80. I'm sorry, if I'm the CEO, why am I not priced at 75? I'm just saying it's. I'm not going to say it's a rigged game, but it's kind of unfortunate that the company doesn't really make a lot of the money. It turns out that the Goldman, Merrill, they're big investors. They end up making a lot of the money in these transactions because they were able to get stock at a cheap price. The concept of tokenization could, in many ways, through supply and demand, eliminate that mispricing of the value of your company.
No, it's a
Maybe.
very interesting concept, James. Thank you so much. I'm not going to hoard the mic anymore, but this is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I again, I'm not the expert here on this. I'm more of an investor trying to find ways that we can get involved in this space, and I have my thoughts on it. Um, but this is the type of things that you're listening to on these calls when they're talking about tokenization, digitization, decentralization. This is where we're going. DeFi, decentralized finance. You know. Anyways, it's fascinating. It really is.
Hey,
It
Jim.
certainly is. And Nelson, you had a good point that maybe
Hey,
maybe
Brett.
we're not even going to be ringing the bell anymore. It's going to be a thing of the past, and
Exactly.
the kids are
Yeah.
going to watch it and are like,
They're-
oh yeah, I remember when they used to do that.
Jim,
Absolutely. I mean, you've already seen that happen in a lot of ways.
maybe touch
I
on
think
one.
Red has a question. Go ahead, Red.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell the audience about Galaxy One and the capability of up to $250,000 to put, the amount of money, let's say 100,000 into Galaxy One at a fixed rate of 8%, which is so phenomenal that that's a good way to have money accessible to do some trades if you find it. That I think is just another way that Galaxy is expanding the opportunity for the smaller investor to have a great return while your money sits there.
Yeah. So, what Robert's referring to is Galaxy launched a product in the last month called Galaxy One. It's their retail platform, similar to Robinhood, similar to Coinbase. They offer a lower income investor 4% yield, which is basically a market yield at a 10-year treasury yield. And they also offer, sorry, an accredited investor an 8% yield, which is pretty significant. And that's a guaranteed yield based on a couple of things. One, they have a $3 billion balance sheet, so have no problem making the payment. Two, they take that money in, and because of the digital asset yield on some of the staking they do with Ethereum and Solana and their Bitcoin yield, they're able to generate a 10 to 12% yield for themselves, and they turn right around and pay that out as an 8% yield. You can the minimum investment is 25,000. One investor's maximum is 250,000, and they're not going to have any more than 250 million in that in 8% yield, so they'll have to pay out 20 million. There's a couple things going on there. One, that's a fantastic yield on CNBC when they're interviewing Mike, they're like, I would love to get 8% a year, right? So that's one thing they're doing. Two, they're getting a lot of high income investors to put money into that. So now they're growing the platform, and it's just a really easy way for them to raise $250 million that they can reinvest at a higher rate. This is what banks and insurance companies have been doing for 100 years. They take your premiums, they take your deposits, and they reinvest them at higher rates than they pay you. It's pretty simple. It is this is basic math, and this is what Galaxy has done, offering a really significant 8% yield. So again, not financial advice, but it's safe. It's going to get paid out. It's it's something I think you should look into if you're looking for that kind of yield.
Yeah, I mean, who's doing that right now?
And
That's
again, let me
great.
just say, like they're a first mover again in looking at what's happening in their business, the type of yield they're getting for their own business, they're growing at 20, 25% a year, generating 10 to 12% yield, and saying, okay, look, if we can generate that yield, why not pay it out to our customers at 8%? Right, and then we have the ability to get all these new customers on our platform. That same customer that gives them 25 or $100,000 might actually go in and buy some Bitcoin, buy some stock, start using their platform as their. They might shift away from Coinbase or Robinhood, and eventually they said today that they've signed up. Oh boy, thousands of customers. Their average client has a net asset of $2 million, a net asset worth of $2 million and liquid assets of over 250,000. That's pretty big. That's a high net worth group. You know, they're growing a pretty fast business right there. Um, and then I can also tell you that one of my clients is looking at putting money into one of their yielding products that they also have investments in, and they're looking at a 12 to 15% per year yield on those digital assets. That's Galaxy getting that return, offering it to a special client of theirs. Okay, they're using that return to pay the 8% yield that I mentioned. So that's even a whole different part of what they're doing. But you have to be. I mean, this is somebody I've known for a long time. That has known that Galaxy guys for a long while. Um, and they're just in all different parts of the business and really recreating what's happening in the space.
Well, Jim, I know we've kept you over time today, and we do
Dinner time.
appreciate you. And we certainly welcome, we really want to have you back, and maybe even
Sure.
have a crypto hour or a finance hour that's separate from just our regular show of entrepreneurs. But thank you for coming on here. Where can everybody find you, Jim? We don't have you pinned.
SullivanWood.com is the my website, and from there you can navigate around and see how to reach out to me. I would love to talk crypto. One of the things I'm trying to do is get away from the word crypto and focus on digital assets.
Okay,
It's kind of like, remember the junk bond back in the day? They now call it high yield. Well, crypto to digital assets would be kind of a nice way
digital asset. Okay.
to look at it. But again, it's I spend my entire day looking for good ideas to invest in, and that's what we're all about.
So, Jim, will you do as a courtesy for anybody on the program tonight or that was on YouTube or TikTok, instead of needing a $500,000 as the minimum investment, do a smaller investment for these people that took the time to listen to you?
Anybody who emails me and wants to talk and uses the code Rhett Butler can come in with any size they want to invest. I'd be happy to talk to them.
Wow.
You
Okay,
have to use
guys.
the code Rhett Butler is the code. Don't tell anybody. That's the secret code.
You need to know how to spell that. So
No, you mean
Yeah,
Rainmaker Power Hour, okay?
you can use Rainmaker
Okay.
too.
I
Yeah.
like Rainmaker better. Yeah, keep my name
All
out of
right,
it. So yeah, Rainmaker.
we'll go with Rainmaker. We'll go with Rainmaker.
Okay.
That's a better idea. Thank
I
you, credit.
love it. I
Well,
But
this is
guys,
love
I think
I would highly recommend, Jim and I have done business now for over 20 some years, and Wendy was skeptical when we first got married, and we converted a lot of the money. I did some trades for her and Jim did the bulk of the trades, and Wendy's a very happy lady right now. Let's put it that way.
that is true. Well, thank you, Jim. We appreciate it. We do want to
Well, thank you.
say a big thank you to our sponsor,
Oh,
William and Harry. Uh, elevate your golf game with luxury brand exotic golf shoes. Thank you guys for supporting us every week. And we do want to thank our tech team, Paul Perez, Nigel Line, DuBois, and Dan Winters, who keep us running every week and streaming us over to all the various platforms. And so, guys, we will see you next Tuesday at our new time, 8 Eastern Central Time. 8 Eastern Standard Time is our new time. And we appreciate everyone in the audience
all
coming
right.
to
Thanks, guys.
participate. Thanks, Nelson, to Vegas and East Stump, all the people in the audience.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.